Hi, and welcome back to the Macbeth Explained Annotate With Me series. Today we're going to be looking at Act 5, Scene 3, so we're slowly ramping up to the end. Now, this is a scene like many of the scenes in Act 5, which just sort of moves the plot forward and builds up towards the climax of the story. And so this isn't really a scene, again, that is likely to come up in an exam, and it's not a scene that holds many key and sort of iconic Macbeth quotations. So what I'll be doing is I'll just be going through the scene, explaining it as usual, and I'll be picking out a few key quotes, but there's not that many in here. And what I would suggest is that when you are prioritizing the scenes to revise for your exam, this is definitely not a scene that you need to prioritize. There's a couple of things in the scene that you sort of need to know about, but it's not hugely important. So without further ado, if you'd like to pause the video here, go grab your copy of the text, pens, highlighters, anything that you need, and press play when you're ready. Scene 3, Dunsinane, a room in the castle. Enter Macbeth, doctor, and attendants. Attendants would just be the sort of servants, the staff in the castle that would be assisting Macbeth. They'd be bringing him messages, listening to his orders, things like that. So Macbeth starts by saying, "Bring me no more reports, let them fly all, till Burnham Wood remove to Dunsinane, I cannot taint with fear." So the scene starts straight away with the implication that Macbeth has basically been getting lots of reports from his servants that his thanes, the lords in his court and his people and potentially his soldiers are fleeing there, sort of running away. And we already know that many of them have left Macbeth's side to actually go and join Malcolm's side. However, Macbeth here literally says, let them fly, or like, let them leave, they want to leave. And this is where we see straight away in the scene that we see how the prophecies that the witches gave Macbeth are sort of leading Macbeth to set up his own downfall. So it's not the prophecies that lead to Macbeth's downfall, it's how he acts based on the prophecies. So the fact that he thinks, well, it doesn't matter how many people leave my side to go join Malcolm's army until the forest comes to the castle, I don't need to be worried. I cannot taint with fear. Like his soul can't be tainted means dirtied or stained with fear. So he doesn't think he needs to be afraid because he doesn't think it matters whether or not the thanes and the soldiers stay at his side. He says, "What's the boy Malcolm? Was he not born of woman?" And so what he's saying here is, again referring to the witches' prophecies, well, Malcolm was born from a woman, so he is not going to be the one who's going to be able to kill Macbeth. But we also have the really excellent here use of the word the boy Malcolm. And it's a really good, so that rhetorical question does a really good job of showing us Macbeth's attitude towards Malcolm. And there was really always a sense that Macbeth kind of always felt he would be a better king than Malcolm. And also the fact that maybe Macbeth is sort of more... I mean, Macbeth is the one that literally saves the country at the beginning of the play, not Malcolm, and we sense that sort of lack of respect that Macbeth has towards Malcolm, because he thinks he's maybe too young, he hasn't really seen combat the way that Macbeth has. And we see this in this little quote here. So what's the boy Malcolm? Was he not born of woman? The spirits that know all mortal consequences have pronounced me thus. Fear not, Macbeth. No man that's born of woman shall e'er have power upon thee. So here he's reminding himself, the trees aren't going to move to the castle. Malcolm was born of a woman, and the witches did tell me I don't need to be afraid. No one's going to defeat me until these things happen. So then he repeats, then fly, false thanes, and mingle with the English epicures. He's saying, well, then go away, you false thanes. It's really interesting here, the sort of reversal, because he was the original false thane, he was the original traitor, but now he thinks that all the thanes that are leaving his side are traitors to him. He's saying, well, fine, go away, go mingle with the English army, go join Malcolm's army. The mind I sway by and the heart I bear shall never sag with doubt nor shake with fear. And here this is really interesting because we've seen Macbeth's character arc throughout the text. He starts off really fearless, brave, sort of unshakable is how he seems when he's described in the battle at the beginning against MacDonald's army and the Norwegian army. And then, of course, after Duncan's murder, we see him being weaker, we see him being broken, we see him full of self-doubt and paranoia and guilt and remorse and fear. And here it's almost like, because he's gone through all these extremes, these extreme emotions, and because of the witch's prophecies, it's almost like he's gone back in a weird way to his original self, his original fearless warrior self. And there might also be the element of the fact that Macbeth is a soldier, and at the end of the day, he is actually better suited to a war than he is to ruling. Macbeth was never raised to rule. His job, the thing that he's good at, is being a soldier. And in a sense, he can revert back to this position that he's actually good at. He's not afraid to fight. That's what he does. And we really get a sense of this in this quote where he says his mind and his heart will never shake with fear. Enter a servant. And this little dialogue here, we're not going to go too much into it, but it really shows sort of Macbeth's complete lack of empathy. He says to the servant, "The devil damn thee black." So he starts by basically cursing him. "The devil damn thee black, thou cream-faced loon." So there's loads of references in this little dialogue to the servant being really pale with fear, hence cream-faced. Loon is basically idiot. "Thou cream-faced loon, where goest thou, that goose lock?" The servant says, "There is 10,000, and we already know that, of course, he's talking about Malcolm's soldiers. "There is 10,000, Macbeth interrupts him, as we can tell from the dash. "Geese, villain!" He's saying, "What, 10,000 what? Geese?" The servant says, "Soldiers, sir." Macbeth says, "Go prick thy face, and overread thy fear, thou lily-livered boy." He's calling him a coward, and he's saying, like, go like slap some life into your face. "What soldiers, patch? Death of thy soul, those linen cheeks of thine are counsellors to fear. What soldiers, whey-face?" He's like, what soldiers are you talking about? Like, slap some life into your cheeks. Like, you're looking so pale. It's like you're going to die from fear. And here, Macbeth, I mean, we see his lack of empathy, but we also see how angry he is that the servant looks afraid. And it's almost as if maybe Macbeth doesn't want to be reminded that what's happening is actually a big deal. It's a big problem. It's something that he should be afraid of. And it's almost like, because he feels fearless, he wants everyone to have that kind of attitude of, like, who cares? Like, the army can't defeat me anyway. I don't need to be afraid. And he seems really angry at the servant for showing fear. The servant says, "The English will so please you." Macbeth says, "Take thy face, hand, like, get your face out of my sight." So now Macbeth knows that that's it. Malcolm's army is here. Exit servant. Then Macbeth is talking to another servant, where he's calling his servant Satan. And Satan would be like, kind of like the boss of the servants, like the head servant that would sort of oversee the other servants and sort of take care of everything for Macbeth. "Satan, I am sick at heart when I behold Satan, I say." So he's sort of half speaking to himself and calling Satan at the same time. "This push will cheer me ever, or deceit me now." He's saying this fight, this push back, like that, Malcolm, basically this push that Malcolm is making with his army against Macbeth will either cheer him ever or deceit him now. Either this is going to end up in his failure and he will be defeated from the throne or dethroned, or he will win and it will cheer him up and it will reassure him that he is, meant to be king. He says, "I have lived long enough. My way of life is fallen into the sea, the yellow leaf." He's talking here, and this completely contradicts the sort of arrogance and fearlessness earlier, because we see a much more sort of hopeless and melancholy side to Macbeth. He's saying, he's almost saying like he's lived long enough, like he's sick of life, almost sick of living. He's saying his way of life, like his lifespan, is falling into. He's comparing it to in the autumn when the leaves start turning yellow and dying. He knows that he's entered the sort of late stages of his life, in the sense that everything good that was going to happen to him has happened to him, and now there's not really anything good to look forward to. He says, and that which should accompany old age, the things that he should be looking forward to, as honour, love, obedience, troops of friends, I must not look to have. He knows that from here on out, there's nothing positive or good waiting for him in his future. He's not going to be loved. He's not going to be obeyed by his people. He's not going to have friends. all the things, all the benefits that you should reap from living a good life. He is not going to have these things because he has done bad things and he'll be punished for that. He says, but in their stead, instead of having friends and love and all these good things, curses, not loud but deep, mouth honour, breath, which the poor heart would fain deny and dare not. And he's saying instead of having love and friendship and all these things, what he's going to have is curses, not loud but deep. People will be cursing him, and they won't be doing it loudly because they'll be too afraid to, but deeply. The hatred that people have for him is deep. They might not express it, but it's there and it's really profound. And he says, mouth honour, breath which the poor heart would fain deny. He's saying instead of people cursing him to his face, there'll be mouth honour is sort of like flattery or compliments, like paying lip service to someone. He's saying people will sort of be nice to him to his face and flatter him to his face, but that would be breath. It'll be just like air. It'll be meaningless because everything they'll say to him, their heart would deny it. They wouldn't mean it in their heart. So again, we have the theme of deception, of appearance versus reality. And of course, Macbeth and Lady Macbeth originally embodied the theme of deception. They were the ones who deceived Duncan in order to kill him. And now Macbeth keeps sort of resenting that deception from others around him, which is ironic because that's how he started off. And he sort of, now that the tables have turned on him a little bit, he can't bear it. He can't stand it. He calls Satan again. Satan. And to Satan. And it's not probably completely by accident that the name Satan sounds so much like Satan, as in the devil from the Bible. Satan says, what is your gracious pleasure? What can I do for you? Macbeth says, what news more? Do you have any more news? Satan says, all this confirm, my love, which was reported. No. He's saying, I can only confirm the things that you already know. So the things are leaving his side. The English soldiers have arrived. Macbeth says, I'll fight till from my bones my flesh be hacked. He's saying just because he knows that people have left his side and the English army is coming doesn't mean he's going to give up and not fight. He will fight until his flesh is literally cut from his bones. So he will fight to the death. Give me my armour. Satan says, 'tis not needed yet. You don't need to wear your armour yet. Macbeth says, I'll put it on. So there's almost like a comforting aspect to Macbeth and his armor. He's asking for his armor even though the battle hasn't started, and Satan is saying, oh, well, there's, it's not really time to put on your armor. But Macbeth repeats it. He says, give me my armor, give me mine armor. Almost as if he's clinging to his armor for comfort, and almost maybe as if he's trying to remind himself of who he is, this sort of brutal, dauntless soldier that he was at the beginning. He says, I'll put it on. Send out more horses, skirt the country round, hang those that talk of fear. And here we see how his tyranny has escalated so much since the last time we really saw him with the act of killing Macduff's family. Now he's literally sending out soldiers to hang anyone that says that they're afraid. Anyone that's spreading fear and paranoia in the country, anyone that's worrying about the war that's about to happen, they will be hanged. So he's saying, skirt the country round, hang those that talk of fear. And he says this so casual, such a throwaway line. Having people hanged means absolutely nothing to him, which is a really sad thing to see in terms of his character arc, because we saw how much he debated and how much he was tortured over the idea of killing Duncan, and now killing countless people means nothing to him. He just throws that out without even double guessing himself or doubting himself. He repeats again, give me my armour. How does your patient, doctor? And here the doctor must have just arrived, and Macbeth is asking him, oh, how's your patient, meaning Lady Macbeth. The doctor says, not so sick, my lord, as she is troubled with thick-coming fancies that keep her from her rest. The doctor is saying she doesn't have a physical illness, it's the things have her mental health, basically stopping her from sleeping properly. Macbeth says, cure her of that. Again, that sort of commanding language from Macbeth towards everyone else now. He says, canst thou not minister to a mind diseased, pluck from the memory a rooted sorrow, raise out the written troubles of the brain, and with some sweet oblivious antidote, cleanse the stuffed bosom of that perilous stuff which weighs upon the heart? So Macbeth understands what the doctor is saying. He understands that the root of Lady Macbeth's problems doesn't lie in her physical health, but in her mind, in her head. And he's asking the doctor if the doctor doesn't have anything that could sort of erase the troubles from Lady Macbeth's brains. He's asking for a sort of antidote that would, he says, pluck out the memory or raise out the written troubles of the brain. He's saying something that could sort of tear out or erase all these bad memories, all these bad thoughts, the guilt from Lady Macbeth's mind, so that she can finally be well again. The doctor says therein the patient must minister to himself. He's saying in that sense, when it comes to something in the mind, something like what Lady Macbeth and Macbeth are sort of struggling with at the moment, he's saying they can only help themselves at this point. Yeah, they have to minister to themselves, they have to heal themselves. And here he's almost certainly referring to the idea, the spiritual idea of seeking forgiveness, seeking repentance, asking God for forgiveness. He's sort of saying, like, there's nothing really he can do now for Lady Macbeth. Macbeth is something that they have to sort of sort out themselves. It's between them and God. But of course, now we already know that their relationship with God is long dead, and they can't actually seek repentance, so really there's no hope for either of them. Macbeth says, throw physics to the dogs, I'll none of it. And he's sort of saying, fine, well, what's the point of doctors? What's the point? Physics here refers to like medicine. Throw medicine to the dogs, I don't need it. Come, put my armor on, give me my staff. And now he's starting to get himself ready for the battle. Satan, send out. Doctor, the thanes fly from me. Come, sir, dispatch. If thou wouldst, doctor, cast the water of my land, find her disease and purge it to a sound and pristine health, I would applaud thee to the very echo that should applaud again. So here he's sort of speaking half to the doctor, half to Satan, sort of giving orders. He's saying, right, give me my armor. Satan, you send out the men that I've told you to go kill the people talking of fear. Doctor, did you know that all the laws are leaving from my side? Come, sir, dispatch. And he's sending Satan out. He's saying, right, hurry up. And then he talks again to the doctor, and he's saying, if only you could cure my land of the soldiers that are arriving there, then I would applaud you. Pull it off, I say. And here maybe he's talking about his armor. So maybe he's had his armor being put on and maybe he's having it taken off. It's hard to say. He seems really disjointed in his thinking. He says, what rhubarb, cyme, or what purgative drug would scour these English hens? Here's thou of them. He's saying, have you heard that these English soldiers have arrived? Is there, like, do you have an antidote or a cure or a plant that can purge them, that can scour them, that can sort of cleanse them out of the land? The doctor says, aye, my good lord, yes, I have heard that the soldiers have come. Your oral preparation makes us hear something. He's saying, well, the fact that you've been preparing for war makes everyone aware of what's happening. Macbeth says, bring it after me. So here he's probably again talking to Satan or one of the servants and saying, bring it, as in bring my armour after me. I will not be afraid of death and bane till Burnham Forest come to Dunsinane. He's saying, I'm not going to be afraid of death and the destruction until the forest starts moving towards the castle. And again, he ends exactly as he started. No matter how much we've seen these glimpses of melancholy, of hopelessness within him, and we can also tell that he's not in a very good state of mind, because we can see how sort of disjointed he is and almost like manic. But he ends with a strong message of fearlessness, of determination. The idea that he will die fighting, that he won't give up until he's dead, and he knows that this fight is either going to make or break him in a sense, but he's going to go into this fight fearless because of what the witches told him. The doctor, aside, so to himself, says, were I from Dunsinane away and clear, profit again should hardly draw me near. He's saying, if I was away from Dunsinane right now, I wouldn't go there even for profit, even if the money was good. And he's basically implying that he wishes he was far away from Dunsinane, because he knows what everyone knows apart from Macbeth, seemingly, which is that the war is not going to end up well for Macbeth, that it's very unlikely that Macbeth is going to win. The war is just going to be brutal. And this is where we end exhumed, so they all leave. And so as you can see, this is a really short scene. We sort of find out a little bit more about the soldiers approaching. It's sort of building the tension. We're starting to see Macbeth's attitude towards the war, and his fearlessness, which echoes his fearlessness from the start, but of course is based on, unfortunately, prophecies that we as the audience know are misleading. And so here Shakespeare is really showing us how Macbeth is sort of hurtling towards his own downfall recklessly, and he would have built the tension for the audience. So in the next video, we'll be looking at Act 5, Scene 4. I hope that this was helpful. As usual, if you have any questions about anything at all, please feel free to leave them in the comments. And if you have any suggestions for videos that you'd like to see in the future, please let us know.